Hello. I wanted to continue talking about the subject of death, loss, grief, and bereavement. Um, and I've posted a few videos about this already, and this is um, something that I think is really important to discuss. How do you cope with going through grief and loss? And a lot of people will have lots of suggestions. But I wanted to talk about it to I suppose try and normalize that support is necessary, to recognize what support is needed and where you can find that support. So how do we cope? How do we cope with our grief, with our loss? Well, the first thing is to acknowledge that what you're going through is something that you have to go through. As I said in my last post, you can't get around it. If you ignore it, it starts to demand attention by becoming physical, physical illness, depression. If you push your feelings away, that means that they're not going to be processed. Your thoughts around it will not be processed. And this leads to emotional distress, physical illness. And you don't really want to get to a point where you've coped so long that you're so tired, you're so exhausted that your system is depressed. Clinical depression is not something that anybody would want to deal with. So the research indicates that support from family and friends and community resources is a part of coping. Engaging and taking part in your cultural or religious practices can be really beneficial and supportive. The ritual of grieving, having a funeral, a memorial, honouring the person that you've lost, and doing the things that help you to feel comforted. Another way of coping is through artistic expression and writing, painting, making things, whatever that is, pottery, etc. Doing this in memory of your loved one can be very beneficial. You may have seen things like teddy bears that have been made out of an item of clothing of the person that has died and been given as gifts. One of my clients had some of her father's ashes made into a bead, and she wore it in a beautiful necklace. Anything that helps you to feel connected to that person, but also potentially doing something artistic can be really helpful. Receiving something from somebody they've made something for you is lovely, but the actual practice of doing something creative is very healing, and it uses a different part of your brain which soothes your system, and it's a good way of coping. Physical activity is probably something that anybody going through grief, it's the last thing that they might want to do. But actually, going to an exercise class or the gym or walking or running or swimming can be not just beneficial for your mind in the sense that you're doing something that you don't have to think about, you just do it. If you're in an exercise class following an instructor, if you are in the gym doing a routine that you've done many times before, or training with someone where they're telling you what to do, that in itself can be very good. It's a good distraction, but the actual physical movement is massively beneficial for your system. It promotes the endorphins, the happy hormones in your system. It promotes a sense of well-being in your body. It can make you feel physically tired, which can support good sleep. It's better for your joints, it's better for your muscles, it's better for your mind. And it helps you to feel engaged in something, which can be very important as a part of coping. There are lots of strategies that people will employ. But I'm going to talk about the research, evidence-based strategies that I use in my practice, and that a lot of people will suggest. So part of coping is having to process what you're going through, and that means to grieve, to mourn. Going through the process of grieving, you've got to go through it. You cannot get around it. The reality of trying to go around your grief, avoid it altogether, push it away, ignore it, is only going to take energy. It's going to sit in your body, in your cells, and eventually will demand attention. And it's really important to recognize that. I work with so many people where they've coped for so long and they're literally at breaking point. You don't have to be at breaking point to seek help to help you cope. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to ask for help. And you may find that depending on what your loss is, in terms of, is it the loss of a person, the loss of a pet, the loss of a job, loss of freedom, loss of health, etc., you may find that you can't talk to anybody else about it, so you just crack on. And a lot of people feel that they have to be strong for others potentially struggling with the loss of that person too. You might be seen as the strong one in the family and feel a sense of expectation that you have to be strong for them, but you cannot share your emotions with them. And actually, we know that physical health is very much linked to mental health. And if you're physically carrying that burden and never dealing with it, it will affect your mental health. So it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's massively brave to ask for help. Look for the support that you could have in your life without doing anything extra. Lean into your friends and family. Be brave and share your sadness, your thoughts. Be brave and lean into vulnerability. Vulnerability, for me, is such a strength. If you could be vulnerable, your true self, showing somebody what you're actually feeling in that moment, it is so empowering, but it's also so much of a gift to the people that know that you're struggling, because they were potentially feeling the same way. So it's a real gift to share how you feel too, and it normalizes how they feel. If you're worrying that you're going to be a burden or upsetting others, the reality is that they naturally know that you are finding it hard. The reality is that they probably feel the same. If things are difficult and you don't talk about it and people think, I can see that it's being avoided, I can see that they're not okay, then they're going to worry anyway. So offer them the gift of your vulnerability, offer them the gift of honesty, authenticity, and talk about it. If it's support that's being offered to you, accept it. If you accept the support from people that love you, they will feel useful. They will understand your needs far better than trying to guess what you need until you get to breaking point, and then there's an intervention that's needed. If you accept the help that is offered from people that you feel that you can trust, that you feel comfortable with, then this will facilitate your recovery of moving into acceptance far quicker, because you won't feel the weight and you won't be filling the gaps with assumption based on what you think people think. And it just simplifies the whole process. Another part of support is to seek professional support. And that might not be very obvious, and it may not feel like it's possible. And that could be for many reasons, whether it's economical, whether it's time, whether it's that you've not accepted where you are. If you feel you need a private space for support rather than being cheered up by your friends, invited to everything, expected to come along, and your friends working really hard to try to help you, or alternatively just avoiding it altogether and ignoring what potentially is going on for you. Talking to a therapist is very useful support, especially for complex or disenfranchised grief. And it may be the only place that you can talk about what's going on for you. You may find, however, that you have leaned on friends and family and they've expected you to get past where you are. And that could be because the first anniversary, etc., has happened, the year of firsts. And maybe you feel that you're burdening them, or you feel that you're annoying them, or you feel that you should be over it by now, and yet you're still feeling stuck, you're still feeling where you are. Then having a private space with a therapist where they're not connected to your world, they're not going to tell you how to feel, they're not going to offer you platitudes, they're going to let you feel. They're going to let you talk about it as much as you need to. They're going to let you cry because they can bear your tears. They are not connected to your world, therefore it's not going to burden them. And therapists, we are trained to do this. There are so many things that we know about ourselves because of training. And we are also very much in a circle of support from other professionals within the practice of therapy. That you can't burden us with your tears, with your sadness. It will resonate potentially, for sure, but it's a safe place just for you. And where in your life do you ever get that opportunity just to have a space just for you? So don't discount the need to talk, even if it's short-lived, even if you don't need it for very long, even if you need it for years. It doesn't matter. It's important to understand that that's okay. It's because that's what you need. Some people will go to therapy immediately after the death. Some people will need therapy during a prolonged illness leading to a death. And some people will need some time to stop being numb and to be able to feel. And that can take months, even years. So there's no wrong or right time. It's whatever works for you. Understanding the process and the stages and normalizing your feelings is a really important part of the coping strategy. And in the previous post that I've done, I've spoken about all of these things. But the thing to remember is that your feelings are yours. It's okay not to be okay. Everybody falls apart at some point. It's okay that you're still crying 5 years later. It's okay that you haven't cried. It's okay. Grieving is physical. The description of heartache, it's so true. It physically hurts when you're grieving. It's very emotional. It's very mental, and it's exhausting. Remember that grief affects your mental, physical, emotional well-being. Your immune system is weakened. You will become poorly at some point if you don't grieve. But even if you are fully engaging in the process, you can still find that you get sick more often. You will find potentially that you have low mood, low energy for sure. You may feel numb. You may feel suicidal. And that may come to just an ideal rather than an action. But again, this can be very much part of it. You may feel anger, you may have very irrational feelings, you may feel like you don't know how to be, you don't know how to think, you don't know how to produce a report, you don't know how to work the oven, you keep forgetting how to do things. You may find that you're not able to concentrate at work, concentrate on anything. That's because grief affects your cognitive function, your short-term memory, and it can lead to prolonged grief disorder if it isn't dealt with. And that becomes a complex grief, which means it takes catastrophic events where you fall apart, you have a breakdown, you're physically unwell, to then go through the process of grieving. Coping strategies I've spoken about, but in summary, acknowledging your feelings is a massive part of this. Keeping a routine going, if you can, is very important. So getting up at the same time, going to bed at the same time. But if you need a nap in between, that's okay. The routine of going to work, the routine of seeing people, the routine of meals, the routine of exercise, the routine of being kind to yourself, self-care. Very, very important. Physical exercise is key. It's one of the 4 pillars of health, which I've spoken about before. And it's very important for your body because it helps shift out the toxins. It helps you to engage in the activity that you're doing because you're focusing on something other than the grief. But it replenishes your system. It renews it. It gives it flushes blood through your system that's oxygenated. It replaces the synovial fluid between your joints. Your muscles feel better for moving because you may feel physically in pain in your muscles as well, where you're tense. It helps relaxation. It's great all over for every part of recovery. Being mindful and compassionate to yourself is something that a lot of people really struggle with. And maybe some people will think, being mindful, really don't want to think about it. Understandable, but it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. It is your grief, it is your journey, and there are going to be times where leaning into it is absolutely important. It's key. And compassion to yourself. Be patient, be gentle. Offer yourself the thinking of what do I need rather than what do I need to do? Offer yourself the thinking and the permission to, I'm exhausted. I'm going to go make a cup of tea and sit down for 10 minutes. Offer yourself permission to rest a little bit more if you need to. Compassionate thinking towards yourself is a really big part of offering yourself kindness and support that may be missing from other facets of your life. Seeking professional help is potentially something that you may need to do. Talking therapy is a great place to start, but you may find that your depression and your energy levels, everything is so bad. Potentially you've become very unwell, mentally unwell. And talking therapy can be helpful, but sometimes it's very necessary to also seek help from your doctor and have medical support as well. And that might look like taking some antidepressants. That might look like taking some anti-anxiety medicines, but it will give you access to being able to talk about your feelings. So the combined approach very often works for people that have gone through a long time without support. Some people find that if they're already on medication, that their medication no longer seems to be working. So it's a really good idea to check in with your doctor and talk about what's going on so that they can help support you by doing a meds review and checking in on you regularly. So another form of coping is to seek support in other places aside from talking therapy and with your doctor. So you can get further support from support groups, and there are groups that come together and talk generally. Places like death cafes, that probably sounds really morbid, but it's actually a place where you can go and share your experience and listen to other people and realize how normal your feelings are. But there are lots of support groups, lots of information. I'm just having a quick look at a list I've created. So online support, there are support groups. There's a cruise, which is a bereavement support group. Sue Ryder Grief Guide, which is really useful. Sue Ryder is a charity and deals with cancer, a loss of somebody to cancer. Psychology Today is a magazine and has lots of articles that are really useful, and they have an online magazine that you can access. Regulatory bodies that therapists belong to, they also have support material that they produce and put out. So you've got places like the National Counselling and Psychotherapy Society, the British Association for Counsellors and Psychotherapists. There's a website called grief.com, that is very good. And the NHS also has a whole array of information that they have on their website that talks about grieving and supporting people, yourself, if you are in fact grieving. There's lots of information out there which I encourage you to do. Just do a search on a search engine like Google, and see what comes up. But you may feel too exhausted to even go near it. So maybe looking at a book that is short and punchy and normalizes your feeling, helps you to understand where you're at. There's a book by David Kessler called Finding Meaning, which is particularly good. There's a beautiful book, beautiful artwork, called Surviving the Tsunami of Grief. And I think, I can't remember one of the authors' names, but the second author, who was my therapist, was Gwendolyn McNichol. And it's a beautiful book because the imagery just reflects what it's like to go through grief. And to describe it as a tsunami is kind of what it's like. Barbara D. Rosoff has written a book called The Worst Loss, and it's particularly useful it talks about the loss of a child, so it's very useful for parents who are struggling with the loss of a child. And then the lovely and beautiful Donna Ashworth, who is a poet. She has written lots of poems, but there's one particular book that she has published called Loss, and her poetry is beautiful. And very evocative of the reality of what it's like to lose somebody and go through grief. And she's brilliant, and it really taps into your emotions, which is useful. So there's lots of support out there, lots of places that you can get help. There's lots of things that you can do to help yourself cope. But primarily, give yourself time, give yourself space, and don't place any expectations on yourself or someone who is grieving, because everybody has their own process. I hope that's helped, and I hope that by me talking about the processes, the types of loss, the models to help us understand what grieving looks like, what we go through, and how to support ourselves. I hope that this has been helpful. And if you are really struggling, don't forget that there's online support, text support, and telephone support via the Samaritans and Shout and other groups like that. And again, if you use a search engine to do a search for support, if you're feeling suicidal, if you're feeling that you want to hurt yourself. And just to say that if any of this has resonated with you and you want to talk, that I am here. And I offer a space of understanding and acceptance of where you are, with no expectations of where we're going to go with it. It's something I believe wholeheartedly in, and something I work with a lot. And as a person that has had many deaths to deal with, some tragic and some expected, and very much the natural order of things, I do understand complex, disenfranchised, and null grief, and would be very happy to talk to you. I'm here if you need to talk. Thanks for listening.